Talking with Jerry.
Don't forget to subscribe. Very important. Please click that subscribe button. I want to do a short commentary on someone that you may be familiar with. He's all over social media a lot, and also is out there on I would say, the circuit of black radio, and has a lot of commentary on YouTube, and that's Dr. Umar Johnson. If you're not familiar with him, he's a well-spoken individual who is an educator by trade. Was supposed to be building a school, Frederick Douglass Academy, but never got done. But that's not what I wanted to talk about, nor is my commentary about that this evening. It has to do with this clip I'm going to play in a second for you. But it's unfortunate that he gets an opportunity to be on a number of media platforms and propagate and promote what he's going to say in the brief commentary that you're going to now hear. So let's hear what Dr. Umar Johnson has to say. It's very short, and then I'll be right back with some comments.
I will only vote when you give me a reason. Okay. Let's take voting in America. Black people in America never get anything when they vote. So how do they motivate us to vote if we never get nothing when we do? Fear. Black people are the only constituency in this country who vote out of fear. In other words, I'm not voting to stop police brutality because they're not going to stop it. I'm not voting to change mass incarceration. They're not going to change it. I'm not voting to fix the schools. They're never going to fix them. So what you voting for?
Wow. So he says, number one, give me a reason. Give me a reason to vote. Ridiculous. Then he says, black people in America never get anything for their vote. Another ridiculous comment. Then he mentioned that black people vote out of fear. And then he says that nothing ever gets fixed. Now, if this was a Russian propagandist, I would say it's to be expected. But from someone that is an educated person, that has a doctorate and an education of all things, this is preposterous. So let me deconstruct this. First of all, these are asinine statements and asinine questions. The reason we vote, which is basic civics, is because as adults, we're taxpayers. You live in the local community. Every time you go to the store and you spend money, you pay a local sales tax that goes to City Hall to pay for the services that you use. You have a say in those services. Everybody, if you're working, you pay an income tax that's taken out of your check. Even if you're retired, you file income taxes, and even if you're getting Social Security or pension, you pay federal taxes on your income, even though it's unearned income. You're not working anymore. You still have to pay taxes. So as citizens, we have a right, a vested right, to have a say in our government. What are we going to get in return for the taxes that are being taken out? How can the money that's being spent by the government help us to positively affect our lives? So right there, that's one reason why you should vote. But as African Americans, it is asinine to propagate such stupidity. You know, black people were lynched, died, were beat.
You can't keep anyone in the United States from voting without hurting the rights of all other citizens. Democracy is built on this. This is why every man has the right to vote, regardless. Is what I'm saying true? Right. Is it what you think and what you believe? Yeah. Move back. If we're wrong, why don't you arrest us? We're willing to be beaten for democracy. You beat people
jobs, people were tortured, anything you could think of, going back from post-Civil War, when black men were the first to get the right to vote. And as you know, you hear a lot about, black towns that were burnt down and legacies that were destroyed. A lot of times that happened all because black men went to vote. So there's another motivating factor, voting affects your everyday life. I think I briefly mentioned this a moment or two ago, wherein when you vote for someone, that person represents you. They work for you, whether they're elected to the city council or to the county ward, or even if they're a dog catcher, or you see the fights now with school boards. Very important, a position being on the school board. I just went to a meeting in my community about school board elections and them trying to get people to run for school board. Why? Because books are being banned. And we don't just need Moms for Liberty banning the books in the schools so our children can't read those books. We need people who look like me, people who look like you, to get into those meetings and fight, and for all things, so that children can have an opportunity to read books about people that look like themselves. There's something else important, and the reason why you should vote. Black people never get anything, as he said, as another reason maybe why not to vote. Once again, how stupid. If you look at all of the major large cities in this country, from New York to LA to Newark to Washington, D.C., Atlanta, they're all run by black mayors. And you might say, well, what does that mean? Well, New York City, for example, has an education budget alone in the billions. New York City, overall, its budget is bigger than most state budgets in this country. It's bigger than some countries' budgets. New York City has a black mayor. They have a black man who's chancellor, meaning he's the chancellor of education over all the public schools, over 1,200 schools in New York City. You have a black man running the school system. Deputy mayors, the police commissioner is a black woman. And these people are overseeing agencies that over not hundreds of millions, but billions of dollars goes through those agencies. And because they are in charge of those agencies, they can see that hundreds of millions of dollars in contracts go to black-owned businesses to do business with those agencies. It's not like it was 30 and 40 years ago, or when Giuliani was mayor, or even Bloomberg when I was mayor. When I was in New York City, I wasn't mayor. When Bloomberg was the mayor, and when Giuliani was mayor, some of the set-aside programs they had to help black businesses, he got rid of them. So having black mayors who can affect positive change in these areas, and everything from business to policing to education, it's another reason we vote. We're putting these people in positions of power in some of the biggest cities in this country, and we are seeing some positive outcomes from that. We see the enforcement that can be done on things like city contracts, whereas even in the past, some of these things were in writing, but because you didn't have proactive people like a Mayor Adams in New York City, and you didn't have other people around the country in certain positions who were going to enforce these things that were in place, things fell through the crack. But I can tell you from experience in New York City that if you want to build a building, if you want to participate in any city contracts and be involved in anything, whether it's $100,000 or $50 million, the city is making sure through the city council people and the mayor's office that black businesses and minority business people get their fair share. That's why you vote. On the federal level, we have a president who's a Democrat, Joe Biden, and he's appointed the first black woman Supreme Court justice. You have a national black holiday, Juneteenth. You have, numerous black federal judges that are being put on the bench so that we don't suffer like we did under Donald Trump with all of the judges that he put on the bench that are overturning things that represented progress for people. You know, we have things that are affecting us in healthcare that the federal government is doing. You look at the Build Back Better bill. Within that bill, it specifically allocates that certain percentages of money spent on these federal projects must go to minority businesses, MBWE businesses, minority women owned businesses. And within those contracts, that people have to be hired that come from the community. They can't just be in the union for 20 years and it's the same people working. No, just yesterday, Fox News was getting on Pete Buttigieg, who's the transportation secretary, because he was talking about how being out at one of these sites where the federal government is spending billions of dollars on road reconstruction, he was glad to see that the people working on the site look like people in the community where this construction is going on. It's not like in the old days where, unfortunately, many of the people that got the work opportunities didn't look like the people in the community where the work was going on. And he was proud of that. And actually, Fox News was attacking him for that. So, you know, even though the problems that we have are huge and there's no politician that's going to solve them, voting and putting the right people in that are going to look out for your interests is very important. So that's another motivation. And it has nothing to do with fear. It has to do with taking advantage of positive outcomes. So no one politician or group of politicians can solve any problems that affect the whole community. And by God, the Black community has a lot of problems. So we can't look for the answer from a president, a mayor, a governor. It has to be a joint effort, but it has to be the community getting behind that elected official, sometimes to push for the change and the things that you want. Now, as I get ready to close, I want to mention something that you should watch to get an understanding of what political power is, another reason to vote. And there was a documentary done a few years ago that debuted on Netflix. It's called Maynard. It's the life story, though it mainly focuses on him running for mayor and becoming the first Black mayor of the city of Atlanta, Maynard Jackson, and what he accomplished as the city's first Black mayor. And what was outstanding is all of the things that he did to make Atlanta the city it is today, to change its skyline, to build one of the largest airports in the world, and making sure through affirmative action that he created thousands of jobs for African Americans. He created hundreds of Black millionaires in the city and changed that city because he put his foot down and said, if this airport is to be built, which is now named after him, if it's going to get built, it's going to get built with Black contractors involved. Otherwise, it's not going to be built. And when people would come back to him from other areas of government, be it the state, the airport authority, and they said, well, you know, we can't find anybody Black that's ever built a runway. He said, oh, well, a runway is just pavement. It's just like a sidewalk. And I know plenty of Black contractors here in the city of Atlanta that can do sidewalks. So we're going to find somebody to build that runway that's a Black company. And he did so many things for that city. And that's, as I said, an excellent documentary, Maynard. So you could see what it's like when you have an elected official that goes to work for change for your city and for your community. And Umar, I would just say, you know, when you don't vote, that's when you get nothing. You get absolutely zero. And sometimes what you end up is a clown like Ron DeSantis, who will even take the books out of your children's hand in a school that are written by a Black person or have Black characters in the book or a Black person on the cover. So, Umar, you're way off base, and I hope we say no Anybody who views my content is a voter and will always exercise their right to vote. That's where the power is. And that's why there's some people who don't even want you to vote. Hope you enjoyed this short commentary on some stupid comments, as I said, by Dr. Umar Johnson. I'm just making sense out of the nonsense.
State troopers.
An unlawful assembly, you are to disperse, you are ordered to disperse, go home or go to your church.
They were beaten back with canes and clubs and whips and tear gas and nausea gas.
I was hit in the head by a state trooper with a nightstick. I really believe to this day that I saw death.
He's